Good evening and welcome to the May 15th at the Mount Juliet Municipal and Regional Planning Commission meeting. As we begin our evening tonight, I'd like to read our quorum. It says the presence of 5 members of the commission shall constitute a quorum for the transaction of business. Chairperson may, at his or her discretion, wait up to 30 minutes after the scheduled meeting time for a quorum to be present. In the event that a member is required to leave a meeting prior to adjournment and the departure causes a loss of quorum, no further official action may be taken until a quorum is restored, other than an adjournment. A majority vote of those commissioners present, and in no case less than 4 affirmative votes, shall be required to decide any item of business requiring action by the commission. So everybody, welcome tonight. I don't know why it is, as we were driving in this, or as I was coming in this evening, it seems like it's almost inevitable that our Thursday Planning Commission meetings here in Mount Juliet either have rain or followed by rain, but it's like rain follows Planning Commission meetings for some reason. So whether or not it's, hey, it's Planning Commission time, bring your raincoat or bring your umbrella, it does seem like we always have a little bit of inclement weather as we come in. Thank you all for being here. Good to see faces and good to have activity here in the city of Mount Juliet. So as we begin tonight, we'll begin with the first item up, and that is to set our agenda. Do we have any changes, amendments, adjustments, requests?
From the consent now.
Please, Commissioner Giles.
Yeah, I would like to remove 6D off the consent.
It's a request to move 6D, which is to review the final plat for Mount Juliet Church of Christ located at 1940 North Mount Juliet Road, from the consent agenda. We would move that item, 6D, to be heard right before item 7A, which is a rezone request. Any other requests from the commission? With that being said, we will set the agenda as stated. Next item up falls underneath our staff reports. Mr. Baughman, planning.
Well, sure thing. I'd just like to say or remind everybody that next month there's no meeting. So, but other than that, Julie, you got anything else?
So we get PTO next month, right? yeah. That's right. That's right. Shane, how are things over at Public Works?
Yeah, I was slightly busy. I do want to speak about the equalization basin project that sewer has been working on. Gosh, since I've been at the city, 5 years in the works. We've opened bids, we've awarded a contract, we've had a pre-con, and we're looking to break ground next month. And that project will be anywhere between 18 months to 2 years. So if you see construction on your way out of town on Old Lebanon Dirt Road going towards Hermitage, it'll be the biggest sewer project this town's probably undertaken since providing sewer service back in the 80s. So any questions with that, y'all more than free to give us a call. And with that, that'll conclude my staff report.
Wonderful. Thank you. Todd, anything roads, traffic?
Beckwith Road north of Golden Bear Gateway is going to be closed for a considerable future starting tomorrow. I think we're expecting a month or two while they widen that out to a 3-lane section and make the anticipated connection to Golden Bear Gateway for a new signal there. And we're encouraging everyone to go up and use the Division Street ramp. Please avoid using Rutland as your detour. And then just throughout the summer, rolling lane closures on Golden Bear Gateway. There's a lot going on out there. So just give it extra time if you need to.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that brand new road is taking a few licks as it's continued to develop out over there. Yeah, you guys probably have your hands full with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I mean, that's one of the bigger projects we got going on right now as far as development goes, and they're required to do a lot for us.
Right. Happy to have you on board leading us through those things out there. Thank you guys at Planning and Public Works and whatnot for getting us where we need to be. Our next item up then is going to fall underneath our citizen comments. This time we'll take citizen comments. Public is welcome and encouraged to make public comment about any item on our agenda tonight. There will be 2 opportunities for you to make comments. You may speak now about the item, or you may speak when the item is presented to the Planning Commission. So it's either or, and we do ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. And anyone that wishes to address the Planning Commission at this time, welcome to do so. Please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
Joan Giltner, 1409 Tate Lane. I'd like to comment on item 10A, the preliminary master plan for Lynn Haven Phase 3, or what is now the reserve at Tate Lane. First of all, due west access. I agree with commission staff that a connection to due west should be required if for no other reason that an emergency at the railroad tracks or on West Division prevents emergency vehicles and or school buses from accessing the development via Tate Lane. If Tate Lane can handle the traffic, then surely so can due west. Thus, the future transportation plan should not be waived to eliminate the due west connection. As far as the fence wall vegetative buffer zone that's called for, the original plan was for a 6-foot-high black powder-coated aluminum fence around the entirety of the development with a 15-foot landscape buffer, presumably to obscure the viewing of backyards in the development. This aesthetic is more consistent with the country-like setting of Tate Lane than a 6-foot masonry wall. A 6-foot wall will not obscure the second stories or tall playsets of homes, while again, presumably, trees planted in the buffer zone would eventually provide a more visible barrier once they exceed 6 feet in height. I would like the commission to stay with the original plan of a fence with a 15-foot vegetative barrier. Building materials. Building materials for the development should be consistent with those required by this developer for the homes adjacent to the Tate Lane Reserve, which required 90% brick, not the 50-50 masonry and secondary materials posted. Lastly, construction schedule. I'm concerned about the construction timeline. There are partially completed or partially started projects on the west side of Tate Lane and south of the Tate Lane West Division intersection that have been ongoing for well over a year. I don't know what can be done from a timing or permitting perspective, but how many eyesores does the Tate Lane area have to endure if this project goes forward before the others are completed? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any additional citizen comments at this time?
Good evening. Sharon Nolan, 1409 Tate Lane. My comments are related to the reserve Lynn Haven master plan development on Tate Lane. Since 2014, the residents of Tate Lane have spent over a decade navigating proposals, plans, community meetings, revisions, and promises tied to the development of this luxury home community. Throughout this time, we've watched the project evolve while bearing the emotional and physical toll and the uncertainty of when it's going to happen. Once the annexation of the property into the city was approved, we accepted that some version of Lynn Haven development would move forward. We knew we would lose the peaceful rural character of Tate Lane, which has been a quiet country setting with deep roots in the community. Now here we are 10 years later, and the project has returned with a new name, Reserve at Tate Lane. The revised proposal has diminished many of the original design standards that were originally presented to the community. What were once required to be 90% brick homes, we were provided renderings back then in 2012. We were shared detailed plans. Now those standards have been reduced to 50% brick and some other remaining materials. Those other materials, usually hardy board, only will require more maintenance and aggressive maintenance by the owners. That can negatively impact both the longevity and market value of the homes. This change in standards is in stark contrast to some of the existing homes on Tate Lane, all of which I pretty much believe, one, the 200-year-old Tate property are 90% brick. The previous plans approved a 6-foot powder-coated aluminum fence along Tate Lane. The plan approved a 15-foot landscape buffer. There was no mention of a security wall. While these features are a departure from the open pastoral settings we've cherished, we reluctantly agreed to the idea that some version of a compromise was coming for this community. That compromise hoped to preserve some of the visual harmony of the neighborhood aesthetics and property values. At this point, the only levity I can find in comparing this development is comparing it to cicadas. It keeps coming back, and we're never sure whether it's going to be better or worse than the last time. Respectfully, I'd ask that the commission honor the plans that were previously proposed and approved. No mention of a security wall has been really presented or justified. Maintain the 6-foot powder-coated fence along Tate Lane. Maintain the 15-foot landscape buffer. Require the 90% construction to be consistent with the architectural character that was presented originally. Preserving these commitments is not only a matter of design, it's a matter of community trust, equity, and long-term value for all the residents, both existing and new. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any additional citizen comments at this time?
My name's Jim Hunter. I live at 1478 Tate Lane. I'm here to speak on the number 10A. Have no problem with the development. I do have a problem with the wall. I think it's inconsistent with, I don't think people move to the country to look at a concrete wall. I've expressed the same to Builder. I'm not. I also think that since the development is part of the city, it should have a road into the city, not just down Tate Lane. Furthermore, there are times when things get stuck going over the railroad tracks, a truck or something like that. You could easily block it. I don't know if it'll be school buses coming up there or not, whatever the case is, but you need another access into there. I would go back to the original regarding the wall and the buffer, and appreciate y'all listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any additional citizen comments this time? Seeing no additional citizen comments, we'll move forward with our next item on the agenda. Next item is our minutes approval. Item 5A is to adopt the minutes from the April 17th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting. Any errors, typos, adjustments, amendments? Seeing none, looking for a motion in regards to this item on our agenda.
Make a motion to approve.
That's a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? So approved. Next item up on our agenda falls underneath our consent agenda. We'll begin with item 6A, sewer letter of credit number 55110653 for Enclave at Providence Central in the amount of $120,619.50 can be released. The sewer letter of credit, or item 6B, sewer letter of credit number 700005284 for Winfield Phase 4 in the amount of $131,724 can be released. Item 6C, review the final plat for Bender's Cove Phase 1 located off Bender's Ferry Road. Item 6E, review the site plan for Legacy 5 MOB located at 113 Bear Crossing. Item 6F, review the final master development plan for Silver Springs Phase 8 through 13 located on Karen Drive. Item 6G, review the preliminary plat for Silver Springs Phase 8 through 13 located on Karen Drive. Item 6H, review the final plat for the property located at 615 Rutland Drive. Item 6I, review, which is a recommendation item back to the Board of Commissioners. It is to review the annexation request, including a plan of services for South Green Hill Road from near map 053, parcel 152.00 to near map 053, parcel 153.00. Item 6J, which is a recommendation item back to the Board of Commissioners, a zoning ordinance amendment 6-102A, uses in commercial and mixed use districts. That being said, we'll start off with planning. Any comments regarding the items on the consent agenda?
I would just like to say, staff recommends approval or positive recommendation with all the conditions listed. We removed the plat off the agenda, off the consent agenda. I had some comments on that, but I'll wait until we get to it. So staff recommends approval with the conditions listed. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Shane, Public Works?
Same thing as John.
Wonderful. Thank you, guys. I know that we were presented some new information on the review, the roadway and right-of-way annexation, South Green Hill. What's the difference between the two?
I had the wrong road in the narrative.
Yeah, we definitely want to make sure we capture that. Yeah, I would say so. Questions or comments from the commission at this time? Seeing none, I have a couple of minor questions myself. Item 6C, which is the final plat for Bender's Cove Phase 1 located up Bender's Ferry Road. I think this is going to get them where they can begin to pull building permits. But my question on that is, did we put a condition on them that they can pull permits but no COs until the Bender's Ferry Road is complete? And we still have that marked and they're going to still be aware of that?
Yes.
Perfect. My other one was 6E, review the site plan for Legacy 5 MOB located at 113 Bear Crossing. Let me pull my plan out here. I just wanted to see some additional crosswalks and stop signs and our painting on that site plan. Let me pull it out here real quick. Make some notes on my plan. Just a couple of them, just to note, to get on the record, I guess would be considered the southeast entrance over where the proposed dumpster is. You're going to have future connectivity to the lot directly there to the south. And you have a sidewalk termination point to that triangle just north of that entrance right there. And so we'd just like to see some crosswalks or kind of control that future cross access that's going to happen between these three lots over there, particularly as the sidewalks come into unison and so that we create some walkability between these sites. That was the main one that I had. But could probably be do another crosswalk at the entrance up there for Bear Crossing because we show sidewalks on Bear Crossing and we show sidewalks on internally on the site. They all match up. I'm just not seeing anything on the site. And possibly the same up at the north entrance of that. So just those 3 points of cross access where you have sidewalks, just some additional striping, maybe placement of stop signs, just because I'm not seeing that noted on their plan anywhere. So we control that cross access because I imagine at some point the rear of these lots could be fairly busy, and just make sure we get pedestrian traffic that's mixing in with automotive traffic safely coordinated through those areas. Was my comment on that one. Maybe it. And on 6I, which is the annexation out there, we've had all the right-of-way donated to us for that, right? So no purchasing a right-of-way. We're good with the dedication of the right-of-way in those sections.
The intention of that item is to bring that portion of the roadway into the city limits so they can construct the sidewalk or the multi-use path in accordance with city regs and the PUD.
So I know we're going to take on a pretty big storm drain that crosses that section when we annex that. We prepared to take care of the maintenance and
Yes.
and cleaning up of that because I know that's been a problematic storm drain. I guess it would be a nice way to put that one. Tendency to clog up, tendency to hold water, then push it at different flows downstream.
Yeah.
So we're ready to take on all of that.
With the stormwater utility, we've got the manpower and the equipment to do it.
Fabulous. That's all I have. Any further questions, comments? At this time, we'll take citizen comments regarding any item on the consent agenda. Anyone wishing to make comment is welcome to do so. And please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Seeing no citizen comments at this time, I need to close the Planning Commission meeting in order to open a public hearing. The public hearing is in regards to items 6C, 6H, and 6I. 6C is to review the final plat for Bender's Cove Phase 1 located off Bender's Ferry Road. Item 6H is to review the final plat for the property located at 615 Rutland Drive. Item 6I is a recommendation item back to the Board of Commissioners to review the annexation request, including a plan of services for South Green Hill Road from near map 053, parcel 152.00 to near map 053, parcel 153.00. Anyone wishing to comment about any of those items during the public hearing, welcome and encouraged to do so. And please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Seeing no citizen comments at this time, we'll close our public hearing, reopen our Planning Commission meeting, and at which time I'm looking for a motion in regards to these items on our agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve with all staff conditions, including your comments.
Very well, thank you. It's a motion and a second, and that would include positive recommendations on the staff items. Second hold, very well. It's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? So approved. Our next item up on the agenda is going to be item 6D, which is to review the final plat for Mount Juliet Church of Christ located at 1940 North Mount Juliet Road. We'll begin planning. Any comments in regards to this item?
So a big part of this plat was to get the public access easement established for the Greenway Trail across the south side of this. The plat does have that 20 feet wide. And it extends across the width of their property from Mount Juliet Road west. The rest of the plat, they're consolidating 2 lots into one, basically. And the other big part of this is the right-of-way abandonment for Second Avenue that kind of runs through the middle of this property. And with that right-of-way abandonment, it has to go to the Board of Commissioners. So this is a forwarding. We got to forward this to the Board of Commissioners. It's a final plat, but they got to review it for the right-of-way abandonment. There's a handful of minor errors in it. Things like they have 2 lots labeled as Lot 2. It should be 1, 2, 3. It's 1, 2, 2. But that's about it as far as planning's, issues with it. They're minor, can be addressed before we get signatures. So staff does recommend forwarding it to the Board of Commissioners because of the right-of-way abandonment. Thank you.
Shane, anything from Public Works?
Nothing additional
Very well.
planning.
Commissioner Giles, I think you had some comments on this one. Do we have representation present tonight for this project? Please.
Okay, good.
May have a few questions here real quick, so name and address for the record, please.
My name's Tim Martin. You want the address of the church or my home address?
Either which one you want to give us. Both suffice.
1940 North Mountain Dew Road, the church.
Perfect, thank you. Floor's yours.
Okay. The reason I pulled this from the consent agenda, I want to explain some things. I want people in the audience to hear a little history of a situation here. So many years ago, prior to me being on the commission years ago and the Planning Commission, apparently we the city abandoned that bridge. And for those of you who've been here longer than me, make sure that I'm saying this correctly. And apparently at that time, that bridge, for those of you in Mount Juliet who remember going across the bridge, that was the way we went across the bridge for years, and we would still do that. That bridge was abandoned and we couldn't go across it. So when the development came, the potential development about 2018 maybe, Does that sound right, Luke?
Yes, sir.
Called the district. Those developers had agreed to install the greenway, which would be on the north side of the creek, property owned by the Church of Christ. And I've always commented and thanked y'all, and I will again publicly. I always have, and you're a lot in this community, and we appreciate you. I brought this up 4 months ago, whenever it was, after I got back on the board. And would the Church of Christ give us the right of way for that greenway that was supposed to be coming? The original plans of that district, that subdivision, they were supposed to go negotiate with the Church of Christ and get that right of way. They were going to build the greenway and et cetera, et cetera. So I don't remember if it was you or whoever was here knew nothing about this when I brought it up, because since this was going to be recorded, what better time to go on and get the right of way recorded at one time when they go? So it was deferred, and apparently there've been a lot of conversations with the city and the Church of Christ, and y'all have graciously said that you would give us this. So I would have been fine with this tonight without even bringing this back, except saying thank you again. But about 2 months ago, I was in discussion with someone in the city about this bridge, because the way that the law is most of the time is that if you abandon something, the adjacent property owners own a portion of that bridge. So we're trying to figure out which property owner owns whatever. But I was told that it looked like, because of the maps, the GS, what's it called? GIS maps, that the right of way belongs still to the city. So being ecstatic about it, I actually told people that. Then this week I read an email where it said, we really don't know. So if we really don't know, how would anybody else know that's adjacent to this bridge? So then when I see that this is coming, and I just saw that email 2 days ago. So since this is coming before the body tonight, my question is, in case we don't own the bridge, in case it never got recorded, in case whatever the law was in 2010 or 8 or 12 or whenever it was, would the Church of Christ donate that section of the bridge, which is truly the right of way of that greenway, because it's going to come through there, to the city as well, so that if we in actuality don't own the right of way of the bridge, we do have that section as we continue. The terminology in this says that you are dedicating, and so that is finite. It will be for sure when it's recorded. That would be ours, correct? That access, correct? Okay.
We understand it to be an easement, not a
Easement,
right of way.
yes,
There's
the
a big
easement.
difference.
Right, the easement, I'm sorry. And then later on in here, it says that the district may construct. And my question, they may and they may not, that's not been approved, but whether they do or whether they don't, that easement will still remain, correct? Okay. Would the Church of Christ be willing to dedicate, if you own a quarter of that bridge, who knows yet? If we find out that you do, would you all donate that to us so that we can put a greenway across there? The attorney has the terminology. I just met with her a while ago because this has come to fruition. So would you read that?
A suggested terminology would be, should it be determined that the section of the bridge located in the southeast corner of the property is owned by the Mount Juliet Church of Christ, owner agrees to dedicate said portion to the city.
I think we certainly would be. I'm not of a level to be signatory to that, but we would certainly work with you to do that. Because to be honest with you, we don't want to own a part of that bridge,
I don't blame you.
because when somebody falls off of it, they're going to sue us. And so I think we would be amenable to that, but I can't speak to that without talking to my elders first, but there's no reason we wouldn't that I can think of.
We can make it a condition, and then if they aren't agreeable, then they come back.
Yeah, because it has to go to the BOC anyway.
Yeah, if
So-
if you can get me that information very quickly, if there's something we need to sign for that, we would like to do that because we would like to keep this ball rolling on getting
Absolutely.
this settled.
Absolutely.
And
And I'm
so-
sorry I had to bring this up.
No,
I was
it's
under the
perfectly
impression
fine.
It really
We were
wouldn't
actually just
matter
talking about
until-
that earlier.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
we don't have any reason to want that bridge. I mean, it's in floodway, as a matter of fact. So, yeah, if the city attorney can get us that document that we can sign, can we do it something simple like Indeed or without having to do a plat and all that kind of?
We would just change it on the plat.
Okay.
Yep.
We're,
Sorry, not we, you guys would change it on the plat.
yes, our surveyor's here too. We can handle that.
Mr. Hoffman?
You could do that too. We can get it approved, have a condition, and when we get it into signatures, we'll.
We've got some corrections to make anyway, right?
Yes, exactly.
So- Yes,
Thank you
Yes,
so
sir.
much. I'm sorry again that I had to bring this up.
it's no problem. And we appreciate you being and saying thank you for the easement over there.
Perfect. And just one clarification item back for staff. On my agenda, it's not showing as a recommendation item. This is a recommendation item to the Board of Commissioners. Okay, perfect.
Do we need to make that? Do we need to vote on that condition?
Just include it in the motion if you do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any further questions, comments in regards to this item on our agenda? Seeing none, at this time we'll call for citizen comments. Any citizens wishing to make comments in regards to this item on the agenda are welcome to encourage to do so. Please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Seeing no citizen comments in regards to this item, we do need to close the planning commission meeting in order to open a public hearing. The public hearing is in regards to item 6D, which is to review the final plat for Mount Juliet Church of Christ located at 1940 North Mount Juliet Road. Anyone wishing to make comment during the public hearing is welcome and encouraged to do so. Please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Seeing no citizen comments at this time, we'll close the public hearing, reopen the planning commission meeting, and at which time I am looking for a motion in regards to this item on our agenda. It's a motion. Would you like to include,
Include the condition and all of the staff's comments.
in the addition of the city attorneys?
Yes.
Very well. That's a motion
Second.
and a second, and that is a positive recommendation. Correct, Commissioner?
Yes, sir.
Second stands. It's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? It is a positive recommendation. Next item up on our agenda falls underneath the rezone. It's item 7A, which is also a recommendation item back to the Board of Commissioners to review the rezone request from RS 40 to AR 40 for 718 Monticello Drive. Mr. Boffin.
And this is another recommendation item to the Board of Commissioners. This is 15 and a half acres on Monticello Drive, and they're just asking for a rezone from RS 40 to AR 40, which is the ag, low-density residential. It's similar to RS 40, except you're allowed to keep animals like horses, things like that, which is, I think, the intent of their intent. So the land use plan supports it. Meets all the findings in the zoning code, so staff recommends approval. Affording an approval recommendation to Board of Commissioners. Thank
Very
you.
well. Thank you. Shane, anything from Public Works on this one?
No, sir.
Very well. Questions or comments from the commission? Seeing none, at this time, I'd like to call for citizen comments. Anyone wishing to make comments, welcome and encouraged to do so. Please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Seeing no citizen comments at this time, I'd like to ask for a motion in regards to this item on our agenda.
Motion for a positive recommendation.
It's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? Excuse me. That is a positive recommendation. Next item up on our agenda falls underneath site plans. It is to review the site plan for Jam Enterprises LLC located at 15239 Lebanon Road. Begin with planning. Ms. Johnson.
Hello. This project was sent to us. It is a commercial door installation and repair company. They are wanting to place a two-story, 9,770 square foot building on a shared lot with Vintage Wine and Spirits, which is down in the shallow area at the base of Lebanon Road. It's currently zoned CG, which is allowed by right. The height is 56 at its highest structural point. However, it does not exceed the 35-foot recommendation or maximum of inhabitable space. So they do meet that recommendation or that requirement under the zoning code. The bulk regs are within range. The access will be shared via an access drive with Vintage Wine. That is shown on the plat. The parking, they have 47 spaces that are required. They have 38 on site, and there is 15 additional spaces that will be via joint shared agreement with Vintage Wine as well. The commercial design guidelines show requires the 100% masonry. They are requesting a waiver for a portion of this. Currently, the plan as shown has 73% masonry, 27% metal panels. The HVAC is ground mounted and will be screened with masonry to match the dumpster on site. As stated above, they do have a few waivers. They are requesting a waiver from the sidewalk that is going to be required along the roadway right-of-way. Secondary materials, they're requesting a waiver of up to 50% for secondary. And then on number 3 on the waiver, that is no longer required as shown on our staff report because the applicant corrected the 35-foot inhabitable space. So please disregard that third waiver on there. All of our conditions are the typical ones you see. A few that are outside of that is the proposed fencing detail. We're requesting it to be low maintenance and opaque. The final plat, we just want to make sure that it does show and establish the lot and the easements for the parking and the drive. We've also requested a revision of the photometric because the rear of the lot backs up to some Wilson County residential. So they have to have the 0 candle at that point. And then also the sidewalk as required under the zoning code to the roadway. Staff recommends a approval of the site plan with the conditions as noted, and if there's any waivers approved by the planning commission as well.
Shane, Public Works?
We recommend approval with our comments as listed. There's 2 I do want to touch on. The first one is that this development has requested sewer availability, but it is not in the best interest of Mount Juliet to serve this project due to its proximity and infrastructure that Metro already has in that area. So we're still processing the paperwork, but we will be not serving, the city will not serve this development, and we'll let them go to Metro for sewer service. And I'm going to let Todd talk about the project's sidewalk along the frontage.
Very well. Todd, please.
Yeah, this project is requesting to waive the requirement to install sidewalks along the frontage on Lebanon Road. I support that request as much as I hate doing that with sidewalks. We've got a couple tonight actually that are doing that. The reasoning being, with this section of Lebanon Road being squeezed up against the creek like it is, construction of this sidewalk would actually be quite a undertaking. Certainly outside the expected contribution from any one particular project. We're talking retaining walls in the stream buffer. So the juice isn't really worth the squeeze in this section of Lebanon Road, unfortunately. That's going to have to be a city-state cooperative last phase of our Lebanon Road sidewalk project. As far as sidewalk to the development internally to the site, they're attempting to make that connection via the existing sidewalk along the Vintage Wine and Spirits, kind of a cross connection up their driveway, but they are providing some pedestrian access in between the sites. Shane has more comments.
Please.
Last thing, where the sidewalk would be going, they would also be in the floodplain, and it's zone AE through there. And any type of excavation, even sitting the equipment and moving one bucket of dirt to get the sidewalk in would require FEMA approval. Getting a Clomar, Lomar, it would, like you said, it's not worth the juice coming out of the orange for this sidewalk. So that's another reason on our support of the waiver.
I can remember this, I was wondering when I saw that because I thought this came in as a 3-lot PUD many years ago, but this was 3-lot base zone that we approved this. Is that correct? So it was never a PUD? 'Cause I think we initially approved this, what, probably 12 years ago or more? Okay. But I remember we got to the same determination. As a matter of fact, Commissioner Giles was serving with me on Planning Commission, if I'm not mistaken, when we saw this. And we had the same issue with the sidewalk as Vintage Wine did their proposed building up there. And we granted the same waiver for them during that time, specifically for the reasons that Todd and both Shane stated. So we've granted it once before previously as far as that sidewalk waiver due to the same conditions out there. That's very, very difficult section to try to drop a sidewalk in because of the guardrail, because of the flood zone, because of the topo that happens out there. There were multiple reasons why we ended up doing that one at that time. And correct me if I'm wrong, there is one more lot remaining back in there. Is that right? 'Cause I thought this was, yeah, adjacent right there in front of this lot. And I guess to the east of the liquor store, to the south of this proposal.
Currently, the way it stands, it's all one lot.
It is all one lot. Okay. Maybe as we just looked at it as a whole, but it showed
believe so.
three separate.
I think the original intent back in 2012 was to separate it into 3 lots, but that never came to fruition. So it's
Okay.
still currently just the shared lot.
Okay. Very well. That being said, questions, comments from the commission? Commissioner Giles. Oh, please.
I was just going to mention, we've already got a submittal for the plat for this to split it into 2 lots for next month, so.
Okay.
So that has been several years, so I can't remember if I voted for this, which I doubt very seriously that I did. And I don't think that our ordinance was passed at the time that required the sidewalk on both sides. Can anybody help me remember that?
We had the ordinance, well, not both sides of the subdivision, but we
On
had
the
the sidewalk
subdivision.
ordinance.
In the
And
in
no,
the
I
commercial.
don't think you voted for
and I probably did. My question now about it, because obviously I probably won't vote for it again. My question is, why can't the sidewalk be moved north so that you're not in the floodplain?
it. Address that?
Yeah,
There's no-
I mean, a lot of sidewalks sometimes, just like we've done, for example, over on Bender's Ferry in an area, the builder put it over instead of the right of way of the road, they put it over in their land so that in their common ground or whatever, so that they can have a sidewalk. Why can't we do that there?
Creek?
It's what?
It require multiple stream crossings to make it accessible to anyone.
Okay.
And it's a small frontage.
Okay, right, and I can see that over here. So the ingress and egress is from, it's from, that goes through the parking lot of the church, is that correct?
Correct.
And Vintage Spirits.
Yeah, okay. So Vintage Spirits, whether, I don't know if they got permission, if they've got something written that grants them. I remember at the time, because that church was a client of mine, and so I remember at the time that was a question that they would allow them to do it. Now, whether that was written agreement or not, my question this time, has this business got written agreement that they can use that drive? That's a private drive of the church, not public. Is that correct?
First, let me give my name.
Yep. There you go.
Neil Hall, Paradesign, 145 Bear Crossing, Mount Juliet, representing the owners. The access that Vintage Wine has, I believe, is theirs. Now, they have cross access to the church.
Okay,
I believe it is. And then that access, there's an access easement to this lot, to the project
Bless you.
light lot. So we would be just, vehicular access. We are trying to connect pedestrian, as Shane or Todd once said. We're connecting with a crosswalk and kind of doing the best we can there to keep some pedestrian access. But going along frontage or even going north, it'd be a huge span to cross at least a 60-foot buffer there.
If I recall too, when we initially approved this, as Ms. Johnson was saying, there was three proposed structures on this one lot. That access easement was already there, but during that time, that access easement was via the Aldi grocery store when Aldi was there, predates the church. And that access came from when it was a grocery store, strip center, and not a church at that point in time. And we didn't close it because we felt like we gave this project, i.e. the liquor store now, and then this one here, their access there, but we chose not to close that access at the time being a grocery store in public. We felt like it was going to good cross activity, but who would have known that it was going to, a church would buy a retail strip center. And so when we initially did approve this, that was just a grocery store and retail strip center with Chicken Reel, miss them, over there in that one. And the grocery store was still there when we actually approved this.
The church owned that when we approved this.
2012?
Yes,
Really?
yes.
Hmm.
Because
I
they
thought it
had
was
to
still
be
the strip
talked to
center.
about that, about them using their drive.
Yeah.
So,
They may have owned it and had not moved in yet at that point.
well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when the church came through, I was on staff, and it was after Vintage Wine because I wasn't on staff then.
Well, I remember they had to,
Yeah.
that was something that they had to either negotiate or think about or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Further questions?
The request for the sidewalk waiver is not just because they don't want to do it. It's just because would be extremely difficult. I'm not saying it's not possible.
Yeah, it's possible.
Anything's possible with enough money.
Yeah.
Further questions, comments from the commission?
Yeah.
Please, Commissioner George.
No, I completely agree. I don't think a sidewalk is justified there. I don't think we need one. Long-term for city impact, when this needs to be repaired, that's going to be on the taxpayer's dime. It's going to be a sidewalk that I'd argue is probably not going to be utilized. So I agree with staff on this one. I don't think we need a sidewalk there. It just doesn't make sense, and it's not worth paying the money to do that much, not to mention getting the federal government involved. So.
Thank you. Further questions, comments? Thank you, Neil. This time, let's open the floor for citizen comments. Any citizens wishing to make comment are welcome and encouraged to do so. Please come to the microphone and name and address for the record. Seeing no citizen comments at this time, I'd like to ask for a motion in regards to this item on our agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve with approving the variance to not build a sidewalk,
Subject to staff comments.
subject to staff.
Very well. It's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye, raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Abstentions? So approved. Next item up on our agenda still remains underneath site plans. It's item 8B, which is to review the site plan for Boho Beauty located at 330 West Division Street. Ms. Johnson?
This submittal is for a salon. The Boho Beauty currently resides next door, adjacent just to the east at 258 West Division in a strip mall they currently share with an insurance agency. The intent is to build the salon. It's approximately a one-story, 3,921 square foot. They are currently zoned CTC, which does allow this use by right. They abut zoning of the railroad and then to the due north of RS40, so low density residential commercial town center to the east and south, and then RS20 to the due west, which is the Eagle Park that is owned by the city. They do meet all the bulk regulations. The overall building height is 24 feet, so it's well within the confines of the 35-foot maximum. They do have 2 outlets of access. One is on West Division that will be for ingress, egress, and then an egress only on 4th Avenue. They do have drive aisles that are only one way around the building. They have requested a sidewalk waiver for their 4th Avenue area. The Planning and Zoning Department does not support that waiver at this time. They also have excessive parking. There are only 24 spots required. They are requesting 48, so it's double the amount of parking. So it's really pushing the impervious surface ratios. The commercial design guidelines, they are not requesting any waivers. They are going to do 100% masonry product. The HVAC is roof mounted and will be screened via parapet wall. There is a small typo error in the staff report on the dumpster. We have requested them to move it to the northwest corner. It says northeast. So I apologize for that error, but it has been requested to move in that northwest corner up there abutting 4th Avenue. And again, the only waiver that they are requesting is to waive the requirement for the sidewalk along the 4th Avenue side of their property. Staff recommends approval of the site plan with the conditions that we've listed, and any waivers is approved by the Planning Commission.
We recommend approval of this this development with our comments. We do support the waiver of omitting the sidewalk along 4th Avenue, and I'll let Todd talk about that.
Yeah, I'm coming off real anti-sidewalk tonight, and I hate that for me. The reason for this one, I feel less passionately about than the last one, because quite honestly, this would be a very easy place to build that sidewalk. However, there's 2 things going on to the north of here that are worth considering when you're weighing this waiver. The first one is the rail crossing. If the sidewalk ever connects north, we will be responsible for building that rail crossing, and that is expensive. And the second is the geometry of 4th Avenue north of the rail crossing. It's 14, 15 feet wide, no sidewalks on either side, and that's unlikely to change without essentially that entire neighborhood redeveloping. So the likelihood of this sidewalk carrying north is slim, which is why we would support not building this section, because we doubt it would ever connect. But this one's up to you. I mean, they're all up to you, but.
Yeah. Questions, comments from the commission? Turn my mic back on. Please, Commissioner George.
I reached out to Shane and Todd today and had a little conversation about the sidewalk, and my goal was to try to make the sidewalk useful. And after talking more with them, I came to the same conclusion they did, that there's really no use for it. It's just putting concrete down that the city's going to have to use taxpayer money to fix along the way. It's not going to serve any type of purpose. So appreciate Shane and Todd hopping on the phone this morning and chatting about that. But I do agree that we should give that waiver.
Commissioner Jones?
Would that sidewalk connect to any other?
It would tie into the Division Street Greenway,
Right.
but it would not connect to any parcel north.
And since we don't have a crystal ball and we really can't see the future of that development up in the old part of town, we really don't know. And actually, people do go down sidewalks from other sidewalks, and you've got a heavy amount of traffic in that area. And that sidewalk could serve for a place for like mothers with the strollers to get out of the way of some of the other people walking, to do whatever they need to go on down the Greenway. I feel like that it is needed. So obviously I'm not going to support this if you don't put that sidewalk in there. So, I mean, if you go back to when we started the sidewalk ordinance and started getting sidewalks in this city, I've had so many people say that sidewalk's going to nowhere. It's just a piece of sidewalk out there. And look at 20 years later or whatever, how the connectivity of the sidewalks have come. I've heard so much about that sidewalk up there in front of that up there next to the interstate where you had the mattress store. Who would want that over there? And it connected years later. You look over on Clemens, there's a sidewalk right there, and there's not anywhere else. Someone's built a fence in front of it down there like that. But you know, someday that will connect. I had somebody call and complain that we put a sidewalk out there. And that person's probably never walked that sidewalk. But it was just because he didn't like looking at it. But he didn't have the foresight to think about the future. So I think we're really, this is totally wrong. We need to put that sidewalk in.
Thank you. Further questions, comments? Commissioner Rash?
Just a question on the number of parking spaces. Does that seems like overkill? And did we talk to the applicant? I mean, during design, maybe just turn that into green space or something else?
Let's go ahead and
We did express our concerns that that does seem like an excessive amount. Even with the use, that's double the amount that is required per city code. And of course, we like to try to avoid having excessive parking lots because it's just not conducive to the impervious, conducive to the overall aesthetics to the city. We expressed our concerns, and the owner of the property wants to move forward with the requested parking at 48 spaces.
let's go ahead and ask for representation as well to help Commissioner Rash with this question. And name and address for the record, please.
Jake Porter, Heritage Civil, 2055 North Mount Juliet Road.
Just a question about the number of parking spaces. Is there a reason behind it, just to fill in the space, or?
No, definitely not just to fill the space in. The owner and the developer of the property is here also, and she can probably give a little bit more insight to it. But during business hours, they have 24 to 30 people at a given time that could be there. But they also have and pardon me for not ever knowing what these are, but pop-up shops or pop-up parties or something in the evenings, basically an event or something that their building capacity does support that would require more parking. They're currently in the building directly next door. And I know y'all have been by this property 1,000 times like I have and see the temporary paved area that's actually on her property now was because the building next door is underparked per the code, or it's parked correctly per code, but underparked for the uses that are in it. So we're trying to alleviate that piece of it, but also, and again, I understand doubling the code is usually excessive, but we do meet all the stormwater ordinance. The pond will reduce peak flows and water qualities. Everything's taken care of on site for this property. And we do see that it is needed for this potential use.
Okay, I'm just a little biased in this area. I'm pretty fond of it, and it's looking very strip mallish when it was very quiet and peaceful next there at Eagle Park and everything. So just looking for a little bit more landscaping. So I understand what you're saying, though.
I was going to kind of piggyback my question back for staff. If we go under condition 4 to move that dumpster over there, it puts it right up next to Eagle Park and kind of a greenway head right there instead of tucked back there, center on the property. I would agree with some landscaping, but I don't know if we'd really want that dumpster sitting right there at the corner of 4th Avenue.
The recommendation was because of the one-way drive around the building, there's not a lot of accessibility for vehicular movement there with that. And if you've got a dumpster in there trying to pull out right smack dab in the middle of the parking lot, it was just not going to be conducive to the flow around the building. So that was just the thought process, to try and just move it out of the way instead of just right in the middle of the parking lot.
I'd rather keep it where it's at.
Yeah, I'm kind of there as well.
Chairman,
Please.
Just to piggyback on the concern there, we do have truck turn templates for the Mount Juliet's fire department, the largest fire vehicle, as well as the dumpster loading trucks. And they can make all the turns around the building. That is why that little space is a little bit wider right there. Meets that full piece. And we will, there's a the arrow on the painted arrow, striped arrow on the ground is a little bit further back. We'll pull that out again to make it apparent that it's a one-way around the building. And that dumpster truck it would be designed so it's coming around the building and going south back to Division, so it does not need to be accessing Fourth Avenue at all.
One of the things that really stood out to me that I liked as I looked at this plan initially was the one-way traffic throughout the site and the angled parking as well, trying to at least minimize the traffic at the entrance point on the West Division and put them more to an intersection, which would be Fourth and Division over there, more of a traditional per se intersection. Let me ask staff or Shane, this probably falls underneath Public Works. Do we have crosswalk striping on Fourth Avenue right there?
Yes.
We do have current striping right now? I meant to look at it every time I drove past
I
it.
just checked that also. The striping is from the existing sidewalk on Division, crossing Division, and that's where the greenway starts.
And we got
Goes
it
to Eagle
right
Park.
there across Fourth from this property
Yes.
to that side. I'll say I'm with Commissioner George over here that I don't foresee us going there. I know that Commissioner Giles said that it could develop that area over there. I'm one that really hopes that it never develops because if Mount Juliet itself has a quote unquote historic district, it is that area right there. I know as long as I would be sitting on this commission that somebody'd have a real struggle with me to do anything in that corridor right there. Just because of the age of the houses, the historic nature of those houses, the accessibility back to the funeral home back there. I think some of our most beautiful homes lie within that one little area back there. So it'd be a darn shame. I think it'd be fought pretty hard over there. And then I know that those neighbors, especially as we were doing some of our construction projects, really fought because it used to be people would try to cut through that neighborhood to get back out right there next to the medical office over here in the old Chamber of Commerce building as a school cut through at one time and kind of hindered that. But it's only a kind of a 15-foot, Shane said and Todd said, I think a 15-foot road there. Nice if the city could eventually do something in there, but I don't even know that there's right of ways, or I guess we need to widen the road really so that vehicle traffic can get through there safer, so that before we address pedestrian traffic, kind of in my opinion, but yeah. Further questions, comments? Commissioner Jones, please.
I sat in a meeting about 2 months ago with a proposal to actually put a commercial building over there. And matter of fact, it was the city hall. And that is actually still under consideration in that area when we get our assessment back. That is one of the properties, and it may not deem one of those places. So unfortunately, fortunately, I don't know how, we don't know how anybody's going to vote and all that when it comes up, if we do that, et cetera, et cetera. But it is being looked at. So that's why I think eventually, fortunately or unfortunately, that will be developed. So that's, and that was as recent as, y'all remember, 2 months ago, maybe?
I hope y'all don't put a city hall over there. Further questions, comments from the commission? Thank you. This time, let's call for citizen comments in regards to this item on the agenda. Any citizens wishing to make comment are welcome and encouraged to do so. And please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Seeing no citizen comments this time, I'd like to ask for a motion in regards to this item on our agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve accepting the waiver for no sidewalk and maintaining the dumpster where it is on the plan submitted, as well as any staff comments.
Second.
Are we maintaining the reduction back to a code of only 24 spaces?
No, I'll approve the waiver for the spaces. I think they're needed.
Very well.
Second.
Second stands?
Yes.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Abstentions? So approved. Next item up on our agenda is falls underneath mass grading, is to review the mass grading plan for the reserve at Tate Lane, located on Tate Lane. Mr. Buffin.
I'll actually defer to Public Works on this item. I don't have much to say.
Very well, thank you. Shane.
I'll say it's peculiar to see a mass grading plan come in with the PUD. But with looking at these on a case-by-case basis, there was a previously approved PUD. There's nominal changes to the previously approved PUD when as it comes through now. The only thing that we ask, if you guys do approve that this development or this mass grading portion of the PUD, we want to analyze karst features as they show up on the property, and we'll review the drainage report at the mass grading plan review to ensure that they meet TDEC requirements. Those would be comments number 1 and 2, along with any comments about EPSC and any existing buffers, which would be comment number 3. But with that, as long as those conditions are maintained in the mass grading set, number 1, 2, and 3, we recommend approval.
Very well, thank you. Questions, comments from the commission at this time? I want to say thank you real quick to both planning and public works, because you piggyback one of my constant comments is in regards to your erosion control measures and whatnot, getting them out of buffers, pushing them away, try to preserve those areas that we're considering buffers here, and the accidental removal of vegetation because we put our erosion control measures in those areas prevents that by including comments that prevent those erosion control from getting into said buffers. So thank you guys for including that comment from a staff level back out. So Todd, you had some comments, please?
My only comment is I'd ask that this vote be contingent on the PUD, because there's a real good chance that some of this grading is about to change.
Very well. Please.
I was going to say there is a condition on there in the
Okay, perfect.
Very well.
Would this be mass grading with the connection road?
We'd like to talk about that when the PUD comes up for discussion.
All right.
We'll address that.
So that's my.
Yeah, and this is that's a great point Commissioner Rash just shared. Just as Shane just spoke of there, he's got some additional comments, but the comments are reserved for a preliminary master development plan when it's presented on down the agenda, not necessarily at the time of mass grading. So as we're seeing land use plans, we hold comments for when we see the plan itself there. So kind of the same scenario, except this is just mass grading only. So. That being said, let's call for citizen comments in regards to this item on the agenda. Any citizens wishing to make comment are welcome and encouraged to do so. Come to the microphone and name and address for the record.
I'm not 100% sure since I've
Name and
never been
address
here
for the record,
before.
please.
Joe Wozniak, 211 Paul Drive.
Thank you.
So I don't know if this is where I need to say it, but I'm concerned with stormwater runoff from my property at 211. I'm surrounded by 4 houses plus my own that all slope to the back right-hand corner from Paul Drive that run right at that little bit that touches that property. And it's been that way for 42 years since I've lived here. So I just want to make sure that the water that collects that from a storm runs across my property has someplace to go.
Very well. That it's going to be contained within the development.
It's going to be what?
Is that your question? Is whether or
Well, I
not it would
just need
be?
to know. I don't need a lake on my back property line. Because and the other thing is when they did the development on Grady's property, they put a 4-foot berm on the back of the property that faces us. And the water from the 2 houses to my left on the back side of them now run to my property to go off on that corner. Pardon me? Yeah. And when you get any kind of heavy rain, if they say it's 1 to 2 inches of rain, I've got a lot of stormwater coming across my property. So I just want to make sure it's got someplace to go if we're talking about Tate Lane, because it gets muddy back in that corner between Linda's property and that little piece that runs all the way down along there where the wood line is. So I don't know what's in the plan for that, but just I wanted to bring it up to make sure somebody's aware of it because we're on the other side of it. But the water got to go somewhere.
Very well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Joan Giltner, 1409 Tate Lane again. And just to piggyback on what he said, I remember when we had these discussions before, there was great concern about the drainage on Due West, that we don't configure the Lynn Haven 3 such that the drainage gets worse on Due West. Anything done on Tate Estates needs to be consistent and not exacerbate problems elsewhere, I think is what everybody's saying.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Any additional questions, comments? See no additional citizen comments at this time. I'd like to ask for a motion in regards to this item on our agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Subject to the approval of the PMDP?
Yep.
I'll second that. It's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? So approved. Next item up on our agenda falls underneath 9B, also mass grading, is to review the mass grading for Hamilton Reserve located at 12465 Lebanon Road. Shane?
Speaking with honesty and peculiarities, this is, I think, only the second time I've seen a mass grading plan come in without a site plan. So I do want to preface that. I can let the project representation speak to why they're bringing in the mass grading plan. But if you so choose to approve it, I've got the same 3 comments that I had on the last project about remediation of karst features, installation of EPSC measures outside of preserved landscaping buffers, and evaluating the report for drainage to ensure it meets TDEC requirements if sediment basins are proposed. The project already has this project has already been studied with regards to floodplain, and we have and it was zoned AE. There's a LOMR or letter of map revision that does classify the floodplain on this site. So comments 4, 5, and 6 are all stipulations within the floodplain ordinance that shall be followed if this plan is approved, and we'll analyze those when the mass grading construction set comes in for review. Comment number 7 is a coordination comment with the city project for the Lebanon Road sidewalks phase 3 that run from Nonneville to Green Hill High School. So any grading, we just want to make sure that that project is not impacted since it is with general fund money and grants. Outside of that, if you do choose to approve, we would like for this project to be approved with these comments. Thank you.
Very well. Please, Commissioner George.
Hey, Shane, do you have any concern on us approving this without you seeing the plans?
You talking about like a proposed site plan?
Yeah. I feel a little apprehensive myself because we don't really know what we're looking at.
My personal opinion, if it's that what you're asking about, approving a mass grading without a site plan, I think it's, like I said, it's peculiar.
Mhm.
It's odd, but you as the board decide if they want to proceed with that or not. Like I said, I've only seen one other one since I've been here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Name and address for the record.
Jake Porter, Heritage Civil, 2055 North Mount Juliet Road. So this project currently is not a commercial or residential or any specifically slated project. The purpose for this mass grading plan is there is a site across the street that is going to have a massive amount of export material that we need to find a place to put. And this stretch of the road would be an ideal place for something in the future. There's there's nothing that is slated for this, so we don't have an active site plan to present with this. However, the purpose of the grading is to utilize that materials across the road to fill this lot up to a, let's say, acceptable level, but a sellable feature as far as a flat pad. It would be a I say beautification, that's not the right word, but it will make it more buildable as far as the property, more of a sell for the future development of the property itself. But again, ultimately, the reason there's no layout is that we have another project across the road that is under contract for this one to utilize it as a fill area to improve its marketability for the owners.
Is this property currently significantly below the road grade?
Yes, if you look at it, it is, and I can go through and get numbers. It drops off several feet from the road and then has a steady slope back down to the creek that's back there with the floodplain.
Okay, so a little bit of a concern personally, if we're going to raise up the middle of the property, is that going to affect all of those homes on the left-hand side? Is water going to then
the stream runs between those homes and our property, so no, it will not affect those at all.
Oh, I see it. Okay, thank you. That's really faint.
Is there a timeline for when you say you're going to use that fill material? Is there a timeline for fill material to settle and compact before?
It will be, I'll go back and restate it, engineered fill. It will be compacted to constructible measures. So it'll be installed in, I'm going to throw numbers here, 6-inch lifts and compacted to certain compaction rates per the geotech recommendation at the time of construction. So it won't just be dumped. It will not just be a fill, like a landfill or a big dump area with piles. It will be filled from the ground up, and it will be leveled out and flattened and compacted to standards.
Jake, is the fill gonna be contained to between the creek and Lebanon Road? Or is your desire to get fill, which means that you're gonna be taking your trucks and everything up Marketplace to the backside of the creek?
No, currently it is the front portion from the creek forward. I'll say forward, sorry, from the creek towards Lebanon Road is the area with which we're trying to fill. If anything, and this is going to come whenever we go through construction plan review with Shane and them, we'll have to we discuss with them no rise certifications, cut fill compensation as far as in the floodplain, the storage volumes for water. There may be some cut that may happen on the backside, but it won't be on Marketplace.
So we can put a condition on it that just says no construction traffic on Marketplace, that basically prohibits your ability because you're not going to cross the creek with a dump truck anyway.
Correct.
Or pay a major fine if you did.
And again, staying on state routes is the ideal constructability.
Shane, please.
Last
you have some
comment,
thoughts?
I want to mention, and I want to give Todd credit for this, getting on the grading side as an excellent traffic engineer that he got before me. Due to the utilities on the site, specifically West Wilson, we will need to get their sign off, them and West Wilson and Middle Tennessee Electric, before we'll approve the plans.
Gotcha. Commissioner Jones, please.
When you were referring to the geotechnical supervision, for better words, I think that's what you said.
Yes, sir.
So what kind of records, do you keep those records that are reviewed by the city? Not that y'all would, I'm trying to bring this, how do we know, I don't know if I remember a situation like this where it would be compressed to, it would be buildable pretty soon. I thought that was a good question down here. So how do we monitor that? How do we review that for accuracy?
Which
Do
portion?
we just take somebody's word, somebody's report that says this is what happened, and we do because it's stamped probably is that how we do it? Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to answer for Shane, but at the construction process, yeah, it won't be me, but there's a separate licensed geotechnical engineer who is on site watching compaction and does fill out and file for records the reports that prove that those are them. And I could be wrong. I believe maybe the city also has inspectors that go out there and check those
Will they take a
routinely.
sample to see if it's exactly what they say? Is that
We
what
don't take
happens?
the sample. We do within. I'm trying to. There's a code or a state law that does allow us to take third-party inspectors' stamped letters, so they're putting their liability on the line if
Right,
something will
right.
fail as acceptance of that of that process.
If they didn't compact it, they'd just be shooting themselves in the foot with having to do a whole lot of work after the fact
After
to
the
make
fact,
it
yeah.
buildable.
Well, when you talk
it out.
about construction, I'm sorry.
You'd have to dig it out.
Yeah.
When you bring the construction plans, were you referring to the mass grading or were you referring to something else coming in the future?
That this would be a site plan, mass grading plan for you all's vote, and then we would turn them into the title changes to a construction document set that gets turned into the Public Works Office for review. It's just a nomenclature at that point, I think.
Commissioner Ratch?
So just to clarify, what I'm seeing is it's just a place it's an opportunity that you found to level out some property, get rid of some waste dirt that you have from another site and make this saleable. Depending on the time between when you think you would, develop it further, what kind of stabilization can you provide? Can you commit to?
To the code, state code, city code, everything has, Mount Juliet has a 90% vegetated mandate before you're allowed to close out your permits. As far as mass grading, it's seed and straw. It'll be grass. It won't, and again, it being directly on and adjacent to a jurisdictional stream or a TDEC jurisdictional stream. We also have the state always constantly breathing down your necks every week. They have inspections out there too. So that would be up on the forefront of my mind as far as giving my plans off to be constructed. I'm always, hey, this really is a sensitive area. And again, back to yes, there are minimum requirements for those things, but we typically try to get as much on there as we can that to ensure that all the water that leaves that site is not contaminated but dirty water for,
Your
as far as
permitting and monitoring of this is greater than normal due to
Correct.
that being one of 3 blue line streams in the city limits of Mount Juliet, if I'm not mistaken. Just one more question. Where are you going to put your construction entrance?
Currently shown on C203.
Okay, I got it.
But it's going off the state highway. Again, just back to staying off city streets is the most ideal for us, so we don't have
Gotcha.
to.
Please, Commissioner Sushi.
I guess this was for you, Shane. When they do this mass grading and they're raising the level, you're gonna have an increased water flow. How is that gonna affect the drain that's going behind the nursery, then behind the ham store, and all the way to Speedway? Because that's a real dangerous area right there when it rains. Now, how they gonna control the water there?
It's a really good question. The natural flow does go from west to east, and ultimately be our job to ensure that they don't put any more water on the sites to their direct downstream neighbor. So I believe just want to check. we would analyze the drainage report, and if they currently don't show sediment ponds, but if those are needed to ensure that the runoff generated by the grading activities is equal to or greater than what it was before, then they would have to provide the appropriate sediment ponds to keep the water in place, so we're not adding any more water. But that'll be a construction plan.
Catch the increased water. They would have to do it, right?
Oh, yes, yes. But we would analyze the report and make sure that if they do add more water, that it's being detained.
Okay. I have a concern with that.
Can I add to that?
Please, Commissioner Rash.
Just to add to that, and not really a question. I'm an engineer myself, but it's basically vegetative land now that's sloping down more towards the creek, and they're just flattening it out. The difference between the runoff is marginal between the two vegetative lands. I mean, once they stabilize everything, it's not going to be much different than it is today. Marginal. It's when you put in more impervious is when you really start to cause some problems and increase or decrease your time of concentration is when it changes.
Okay.
Typically.
Eventually, they're going to do it on the other side too.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Don't know.
I just find it concerning that we're talking about a mass grading plan with something that we don't have site plans to review. I mean, we just 10 minutes ago approved a mass grading on the condition that the PUD passed. So I'm seeing that if we vote for this, we're kind of talking out of both sides of our mouth here. We're saying, okay, for one project, we need a PUD to approve the mass grading needs to happen if the PUD approves, but for this one, we're just going to approve the mass grading. And I understand the situation you're in. You've got a lot of dirt you've got to haul off, but I just don't think that this is a precedent that we need to set, that we will allow mass grading plans to move forward without site plans. It just seems like we're putting the cart before the horse, but that is just my humble opinion.
Commissioner Jones?
When we will monitor the water that Mr. Searcy is talking about. And what if, not that I don't agree with what you're saying, and I'm not an engineer, but what if after the fact, it's not, if there's not something to control that show us during this grading process, it would be after the fact. There could be some destruction. What do we do about that after it occurs? Are they liable for that? You see where I'm getting? Mr. Searcy made a very, very good point, as well as Preston. That's so I don't, we can monitor, but what's going to happen when it's over? That's this gentleman right back here was talking about the water on the other one. And I mean, what are we going to do? Stop it then? And then one of y'all brought up something about the sidewalk. When is that? We talked about that at BPAC. When is that the construction of that supposed to start?
Public Works Director was anticipating a notice to proceed from TDOT so we could bid it this summer.
Okay. So
Probably help you on the sidewalk because it'd be level land instead of something you got to put steel because of the slope. You're going to have to put a handrail across it.
For sure. Just to reiterate everything that you've just spoken on is the front piece of a typical site plan, as Commissioner George mentioned. Number one, this lot is, I'll put heavy air quotes on unbuildable as it sits. It's not the most ideal lot because it slopes down towards the creek as it does. It's below the road. So in order to get someone to potentially want to build on this land, it would need to be raised. If anyone here in the future comes in and says, you want to build right here, they have to go find this 40,000, 45,000 cubic yards of dirt somewhere, purchase it, bring it to the land, bring it there, raise everything up just like we're talking about, and then continue on with their site plan. That is a massive cost to them in the future of the land. The deal that has been struck with the landowners is that the property across the street has it available. They will help this landowner increase their property value and raise it up, make it more marketable, et cetera. In that process, again, not to toot engineers' horns or anything like that. There's good ones, there's bad ones. I get it. But yes, it is kind of on a position of you all are putting your trust in me and my engineering's ability to measure the water coming off a site right now and measure the water that's going to be coming off a site whenever they're done with it, and to construct anything that's necessary to reduce those peak flows, which is the standard code. Mount Juliet's code currently now has been updated to reduce those peak flows to the 100-year storm event, which again, we will do, we have done, and we always will do. To rock back on that again is TDEC. The state has its own line of code that says, hey, you can't increase that stream elevation. You can't increase, certain amounts of flow on your neighbors. You can't decrease the volume of storage for the floodplain. All these things of water, which again, fall back onto engineers such as myself. Commissioner asked people that do this. This is our living, what we do. And we put it out here for you guys to look at and vote on, and we get a thorough review from staff. So, as far as, not to say anybody's accusing anybody of anything, but as far as sneaking things through or hurting people's properties adjacent to, that is absolutely the last thing on our agenda. And one of the, honestly, one of the things in our industry that is a liability. It is my job to ensure that the neighbors for this project are not going to be, negatively affected by someone else developing their property. I believe wholeheartedly in that person's right to develop their property. However, I do wholeheartedly believe in neighbors' rights to maintain their property as it is. So, and I'd like to randomly, if I would like to know where you all live after this, because I'm also on the other project as well, because I would like to know if you have water issues now. We're trying to mitigate those as originally. Great. I'd appreciate that. Same thing here. Again, we're surrounded by the large stream at hand there. So it's a little harder to say, hey, what are your problems downstream? Because they're coming from upstream, they're coming from downstream. We don't want to make them any worse. And then I will point a couple of instances out. We make them better. If we add storage, if we can slow down water from our property, per Shane's, or I guess Commissioner asked your point earlier, this property currently is sloping between 10 and 20% from the roadway down to the creek. When we're done, it'll be, I'll say virtually flat, less than 3 or 4% slope. So the water will land and gravity it's slower to go towards the creek. So it actually slows water down. To all of your points, in the future, whenever a site plan does come through, there will be more impervious surface. At that point, there will be, whether it be underground detention or an above ground pond that you'll see that will have to detain that excess water. But typical mass grading plans usually have the inherent ability to flatten land out. And by flattening land, you're actually reducing runoff because it's actually spends more time on that surface soaking into the ground rather than shooting over into the creek and going downstream. So again, at the end of the day, we will absolutely run the necessary calcs and provide the drainage calcs under our stamp and liability to the city to review, and the state as well, and be permitted appropriately and checked as they go through the construction phases as well.
I can tell you personally, they're sensitive on that. My previous employer, we were on TDEC permit at the corner of Benton Douglas and Lebanon Road, and we had a stop work issued on us because of failed measures. And they came in quick and came in with fines, and which had some swift movement to it. Further questions, comments? Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you all.
At this time, let's call for citizen comments. Any citizens wishing to make comment are welcome and encouraged to do so. Please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Seeing no citizen comments at this time, I'm looking for a motion in regards to this item on our agenda.
Make a motion for approval.
It's a motion and a second for approval. May I add one condition to that?
Certainly.
Just no construction traffic on Marketplace.
So noted.
Would your second hold? It's motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? So approved. Next item up on the agenda is a recommendation item back to the Board of Commissioners. It is to review the preliminary master development plan unit development renewal for reserve at Tate Lane, located on Tate Lane. Mr. Buckman.
Thank you. I feel like we've talked about this already, but I'll give it a little reminder because this isn't a new project. The reason we're seeing this again is because this preliminary development plan has expired. So what you have in front of you here is extremely similar to the original plan. Some of the things that have changed actually were brought up by the public comment. This is a PMDP only. The base zonings are RS20. Plans expired. It's 18 and a half acres, and the total lot count, once it's all done, is 36 lots. Same as the initial PUD that was approved. I think I'll just touch on some of the items. The connection to due west, staff does support, would like to see that. Kind of echoing some of the comments brought up by the public was the wall around the perimeter. Staff would definitely rather see the original design with the picket or something else, not a concrete wall that's proposed now. I would also comment, take a look at the waivers and variances since that PUD was expired. These would have to get reincorporated in. If you have any issues with any of the, whether or not we support it or not, please bring it up. But in the staff report, I think the planning related waivers, staff does support them. The bulk regs and the big one is the residential design standards for the masonry. They're asking for 50-50, and that's all walls of the house, cumulative. But yeah, like I said, this is the PMDP approval only because it's expired, and we do recommend approval or forwarding it to the Board of Commissioners with a positive recommendation. Thank you.
Any improvements that come about on this project at Tate's Lane will be under the county's jurisdiction. We've requested that the engineer provide us those construction plans as this project progresses. The sidewalk along Tate's Lane will be outside the right of way and under the maintenance of the HOA due to it being county right of way, since they don't allow sidewalks in the right of way. And under condition 7, with our roadway variances and waiver requests, I do want to say that we do support the request for private roads.
Sorry. Let me take over.
You want to take that? Okay.
I can't make a statement on whether I support private roads until we make a determination about whether we need to connect to due west. If it connects, it has to be public. If it doesn't, I do not want to own this road. And I apologize to Jake because we had a conversation earlier and just digging a little deeper into his plans sort of has me a little back and forth on that. So the first thing about that connection to due west, and the reason why it says that I support not making that connection, is because it has previously been waived by the Board of Commissioners in order when this PUD was first approved. And you know, I'm caught between a rock and a hard place. Do I support what was the previous will of the Board of Commissioners, or do I support what our planning document says? It's a hard argument to make, but I ended up supporting it on the basis that it did have that previous approval. Otherwise, it would have been absolutely a requirement that they make that connection to due west because it's in the future transportation plan. Their road layout is exactly what was previously approved for the most part. Few noticeable differences in the design of their parking. As such, because their PUD has expired, their cross section is no longer allowable, and we need to have a waiver to allow. Because we no longer allow extruded curbs on our roadway to the point where our standard detail for them says do not use these on public rights of way. However, with their cul-de-sac variance, with this being an access lane past the intersection with their smaller cul-de-sac, they would need to get a wider cross-section to meet fire code, and it'd be about a 52-foot right-of-way instead of a 50-foot right-of-way to get the additional width that fire typically requests there. Yeah, this all really does come down to whether the planning commission wants to grant them the waiver to do West Avenue or not.
I want to piggyback on statement of this, and Todd touched on it. And ultimately, we did go back and forth, and when the buck stopped with us, we're here to uphold the code, and it's, and we do want to be aware of history. And you guys have been there, especially Chairman, especially probably Commissioner Giles, and that history did play a part in our comment. But ultimately, we did decide to change here at the table due to the fact of what the code is, and we're employed to execute the code. Thank you.
I think the conditions hit anything else. One of the other ones I thought about bringing up, it's kind of it's not in our code, but we do ask that landscape buffers be put in open space. Since this was first approved, it's something we've asked because it sometimes causes some issues. We've asked for it on this, but it's not been addressed on the latest submittal. But again, it's an ask in this PUD process.
That's a good point. I want to ask you something, but that's a good point. Will you elaborate on that just a little bit so people understand? When this came through, and I was here too, back then, that wasn't in effect.
Yeah,
Talking about the buffers, and it's listed on this, if I'm not mistaken, on the actual individual lot. But in actuality, they don't get that land.
They get it, but they just can't use it.
That's right,
yeah.
because the buffer's there. In other words, it wasn't on their land. So, and if the buffer's there, they have to maintain the buffer, correct?
Well, the HOA maintains it still.
Even it's on their land, they
yeah.
do. Okay, as long as, okay.
Well, sure.
Well, there again, we don't know that as an HOA, do we? Or do we? Okay. So if HOA manages or maintains the buffer, but it's on private property, but we don't talk a whole lot about HOAs because we don't have a lot of. Would that be in the condition? Is that in the comments, et cetera, that they would have to?
Well, it would be their requirement to, but no, it wouldn't be in our notes.
Okay. And that wall would be on the other side that's being proposed, correct? So the buffer would actually be on the private property, but being maintained by the HOA. So anyway, that's interesting. Then my question to you, Todd, I think I understand you're talking about if it was private roads, it should be with the entrance only from Tate Lane. And why is that? Just because we're connecting to a public?
So my general rule of thumb is for these small subdivisions, little cul-de-sacs off of collectors like this, there's no reason for the city to own it because it doesn't serve the city of Mount Juliet any good. It just serves those specific residents good. And we can do that with PUDs. We can make that recommendation, particularly when the applicant wants it gated, wants it private. We're all kind of in agreement. Like, I don't want to pay for that road. But you punch through to Due West Avenue, all of a sudden that serves not necessarily city residents, but county residents as well, as it provides an alternative to taking Tate Lane, which if you've driven Tate Lane, north of this site, it gets dicey. And this provides an alternate route to North Mount Juliet Road through that neighborhood off of Due West. So you can get to Due West, you can get to Faulkner, you can get to a couple other locations. You'd have your choice of where you wanted to get to North Mount Juliet Road.
Okay, so, and I pretty well understand it, but on this map, so in other words, that road on Due West and in Lynn Haven Court, that's public, correct?
Correct.
Okay, could that little piece that connects to that not be public, just that, and the rest be private?
Two private entrances is what you're saying?
If it's private, they have the right to gate
This would be
it.
public here because it connects to public.
If it's private, I would say they would have the right to gate it. It's their road. They can do what they want with it. And they are requesting to gate this subdivision. I honestly think that's pretty important to them, but I'd let them speak on that.
Okay, then the next question dealing with this is the wall. You've got your sidewalks going up Tate Lane, which is obviously I agree on. I'm a little concerned that it's just 5 instead of 6 foot. Okay, that's pretty well the standard everywhere now out, where the Mount Juliet Road and now up in Bender's Ferry, we're putting 10 feet paths and stuff. So that should be at least 6 foot on Tate Lane if it goes forward. So anyway, but the wall is going to be on, in other words, the wall, the sidewalk would be, I know it's going to be on, it wouldn't be in the right of way, but the wall would be behind the sidewalk. In other words, you go up Tate Lane, you see a sidewalk and a wall. Is that the way it is? It'd have to be, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Actually, it appears as though it would be sidewalk, landscape, what is that? I can't read that number, 16, 18 foot landscape buffer and then wall, right? Am I reading that accurately?
Say it one more time.
It appears as though on Tate Lane, it would be sidewalk and then 16 or 18 foot landscape buffer and then wall.
It's 15.
15,
Yeah,
thank you.
sorry.
Ah, there it is. Thank you, 15.
I'm using my.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
I got two, while you guys are looking at that. So as Commissioner Giles mentioned, was part of this board when we initially approved this development, as well as the Lynn Haven, or what is now Lynn Haven. Now this is being called Reserve at Tate Lane. One point in time, they were proposed together. This one separated away. There was a lot of discussion in regards to that connection over there at into what is now known as Lynn Haven through this neighborhood. And it all came back to no connection right there. Concerns were the traffic, the cut through, the potential that this could create, all the way up to the intersection right there across from the library where this feeds out onto Mount Juliet Road, and the blind left-hand turn that you really make coming out of that. I believe there's a title company right there, Birthright Title, on the corner of that property. If you're trying to make a northbound movement right there, it's challenging. Your sight lines are extremely challenging because of your traffic flow at that point. That was one of the major concerns that we had to connecting these two. Not necessarily the connection made sense between the two neighborhoods, but the potential for the cross traffic right there going east to west, and road designs in that area caused us to make a recommendation to not recommend the connection of the two developments. Speak to that real quick. My only other comment that I have right here on this one, and I think maybe Mr. Hunter, or one of the ladies that spoke initially here, during our public comments was the rail crossing right there. One of the things I've never figured out was the speed table immediately to the north of that rail crossing. I've got an automobile that can no longer even go down Tate Lane because you nose down, and then you have to figure out how in the world you're supposed to go over a speed table. Part of my condition on this or comment whether or not it passes or fails will be removing the speed table right there. Not to say that there's not a warrant maybe for a speed table or a crosswalk or something in there. But that speed table is not very well thought out, not very, very well designed per standards of a speed table. It's detrimental, in my opinion, to the whole road of Tate Lane, and just honestly there's just zero logic by the location of that. So I would request that the speed table be removed should this continue to press forward. Make a road accessible again right there for automobiles. And just wanted to add those 2 notes right there as far as somebody that saw this initially, and as Todd mentioned as well, physically on paper, as Commissioner Giles will probably say as well, some changes to it, and looks like some changes on the request of design, but ultimately in its appearance is like what was approved years ago now. Please, Don.
Just speaking on that speed table real quick, because I also had some questions about it recently for the Traffic Commission. Do we think that would have to be approved by the Traffic Commission if it was approved to go in originally?
I don't know that anybody ever approved that. All of a sudden it was like, bam.
The BOC would have the authority to agree to remove it. So if this is going to them, so.
And the second point on that is I think we installed it on the county portion of the road. So we might have to remove it.
It's so close to the rail tracks. Your nose down as you make that movement. It wasn't approved as a condition to us. I think somebody said, hey, we'd like this, and hey, we built it.
The intention was to protect that greenway crossing.
That's exactly right.
But in actuality, yeah, that it should not be there.
Yeah.
I think it's a hazard to railroad crossing, period, for those who are getting out of church at that time. And you usually don't have a train coming at that point, but you never know.
Yeah.
So I can
just other
workshop
services.
something if this goes before the BOC, but if we remove that, we'd likely want to add something in lieu
Striping.
of that to protect that crosswalk.
Signs.
So that can be a beacon or something.
I like that.
That's good.
Question. I'm
Please.
certainly no expert on mail kiosks, but that is a somewhat peculiar spot. It feels like right after the gate. Are those, is that parking on the north hand side? So a couple spot. Okay, got it. I was going to ask if there was any parking for the mail kiosk, but I see it there. Just to the east of it. Okay.
Let's go ahead and ask for representation to discuss the project. Name and address for the record, please.
Jake Porter, Heritage Civil, 2055 North Mount Juliet Road. Do you want me to, I can touch on that, some of the stuff that everyone's talked about, or do you want direct questions? Either way
Please
works for me.
tell us what you want to do.
So, and I'm forgetting who said what now. The buffer, and I know I've agreed, me and Jill and John have talked about this during the pre-app and during the tech review and commented on the buffer versus open space for landscape, for landscaping. And for new PUDs, we usually do incorporate this because, again, I also agree with the problems that I've had in the past as far as maintaining those landscape areas and keeping those homeowners from potentially cutting them down or, doing whatever they want to inside them, even though they don't have the right to because it's in those easements. However, for this one, I'll back up just a little bit there. This is a previously approved and currently approved zoning, if I'm saying that correctly. So all of these things are currently still active as far as zoning goes. So we're just trying to get the plan itself reapproved, which is why it matches the previous plan so closely. Caveat some of the changes you've noticed. We'll go through. So back to the buffer and MBS buffer and landscape buffer. There is essentially zero effect whether it's in an open space or if it's in an easement. The only issue that causes for us on the development side of it is that it reduces, if you add that as an open space area, it will reduce the size of the lot and it will reduce the buildability, the buildable envelope on the lot. So it'll push that rear setback line in 15 feet from what it was already approved to be. So since the grandfather dam, or I think grandfather dam, still in active zoning, we're trying to stick to that zoning, stick to those same lot sizes, roughly those same lot sizes, same lot averages. But that is the reason it's on there. To move forward to the landscape, and a little forward, and would you all's comment about the order of landscape buffer sidewalk wall? If you're standing on Tate Lane, it will be a 15-foot, well, you'll see the edge of Tate Lane, and then a 15-foot type A2, I think it's A2 landscape buffer zone, then the sidewalk, and then the wall. I will point out that the landscape buffers around this property are not required at all. There's zero landscaping required for this project. These are all things that are added that were approved previously. They were shown previously, and trust me, I fully support not leaving a blank wall there or a blank fence or anything. I also agree with landscaping. It softens the look of everything. It looks better. So around the property itself, there's A2 landscape buffers being provided. On top of that is the maintaining. If we have a landscape buffer, we're going to try our best to keep everything that's already there, because again, older trees, older bushes, everything else creates more screening than a new tree that's going to be 10 years in the making, right? So all this stuff has been added in those landscape zones, trying to help the neighborly feel around it. Because again, the screening wall, it's a screening wall. That's what the developer has requested and would like. And so they feel that they want for this particular, I think someone earlier, I'll use coined a term, the luxury homes, luxury subdivision that this is, as far as a gated community, private streets, things like that. So as far as the landscape order is Tate Lane, landscape buffer, sidewalk, wall. For the connection to Due West, I do understand, again, typically it's a no-brainer. You want to get as many entrances and exits as you can feasible in the subdivision, so you have multiple access points. This is a 36-lot subdivision. It does not require 2 access points per fire code, for anything like that. That was previously approved. The current zoning shows that it just needed 1 connected to Tate Lane. And to just the devil's advocate side of, it will give the Tate Lane, it'll give these new homes an ability to go through Due West and go out that direction rather than using Tate Lane. My counterpoint to that is the people in the back of Due West, instead of driving over all the speed humps to get back to Mount Juliet Road, they will likely go through this subdivision and potentially increase traffic on Tate Lane. And potentially, I've got 2 acres on Tate Lane. I'd love to build there someday, but it is a 14 or 15 foot wide country road with potholes. And I can't stand it when I'm sitting out there just looking at my land and have people blowing through there that don't live there. They're not from here. They're just going as fast as they can. I'd have zero interest in opening it up to the other side. So that's just my personal, devil's advocate side of that comment. The connection between Due West and our property obviously will change our layout. Again, I'll go back to say this plan was previously approved in 2014. It was erroneously approved again in 2021 because the zoning had expired, but it got through somehow. We got through an FNDP with this plan itself recently, and that's when it got caught that it was, Ms. Burnett pointed out that everything expired. So we're just trying to get that same plan reapproved so they can start construction. I would like to randomly point out and thank staff for working with us, and Shane, to your point, Commissioner George, about the mass grading plan that we have pending this approval is because of all that delay that's happened the last 6 months. They've been wanting to be under construction 2 months ago, but because of the issues that have happened with the zoning and everything, or the plan being expired, Jennifer Hamblin and the city, we got together and they say, hey, we're going to do everything can. Let's kind of fast track this so we can get it going for you, which is great. We expect to go through this process and hear all the comments and conditions and try to talk them out like this. So we appreciate that. Appreciate them going through it with us. But that is why this plan is so similar to the previous plan. And then speed table removal. I agree. It's a county road. We already have a decel left turn lane that has been approved by the County Road Commission going into the property. So any, I think Shane or whoever will say that any road improvements has to go through them. And again, we're open to that. If that's something that helps ease that pain, we can do that. Commissioner Giles, I believe, comment for 6-foot sidewalks. 5 foot is the code. Totally open to 6 foot. That eases anything there. We can make them 6 going down there. Again, I know we get to that point of saying sidewalks nowhere, but you never know if that church wants to put a sidewalk in. You never know if Tate Lane, the Tates decide to sell their land and build a shopping mall. We want a sidewalk. We want that connected. So that front sidewalk's kind of key to us. But I'll have to say it's a luxury subdivision, luxury homes. That's the point of it. That's what they're going for. I can honestly say that maybe you all understand it better than I do. It's not necessarily something that's in my realm of, of ability to afford it, I guess, but it is someone's, and the developer loves this product. I say air quotes on product, but loves the fact of a screening wall, private roads, private facilities, private gate, 1 in, 1 out. That's what their selling point is. So it is a little bit different than Willoughby Station or, all the subdivision going in and around. Those are very nice. And I agree with those. We do a lot of those as well. This is going to be an elevated experience. This is supposed to be a very, Steve, I wish he had his comments here. His goal is to make it, not to look like anything else, but it's a watercolor Florida. Oh, Steve's here. Watercolor effect. It wants it to be really the nicest place in Mount Juliet. And everything we have on this plan is what we think will push it to that. But again, please, if you have any questions pertaining to engineering side of it, please ask. Again, anything development side, we can have them come up and we'll talk through that as well. Yeah, if there's anything else, please just ask and we'll do our best to answer.
Please, Commissioner George.
I agree we don't need access to due west for a multitude of reasons. Number one is we've got to honor what the BOC did last time. I think we shouldn't set a precedent where we can flip things on a dime. Secondly, I don't think we need to add additional traffic on that way. I know I don't go to church at the church below this, but if I did and there was a long line, I certainly would try to find a different way. So I think it's going to cause additional traffic to go on Due West Drive on top of the 36 homes. And I guess the final point on that one is that the minute that we make a connection to Due West, we have to do public roads. We have one of the lowest property taxes in the state of Tennessee. It's not going to justify to pay for the roads in that subdivision, as well as it just kind of contradicts the entire plan they're going for. You can't have a gated community when you've got a public road running through it. So, but I'm fine with the project. I think it's good for what it is. I think we've got to honor what the BOC previously approved and make adjustments as we can along the way to make it better. But I think overall something's got to go here. I think some of the citizens made comments that this has been 10 years in the making. So I think if we can move forward with this and we can get this to the finish line, we can ease some of the burdens of the citizens wanting to know and wondering if and when this is going to happen. We can get something in there that makes sense and it looks right, and we can kind of put this whole Lynn Haven Reserve at Tate Lane fiasco to peace for once. So
on that one, I still think it should be a connector some way for the safety purposes and access for what would be developing. And I understand the purpose of what the developer is and the owner is trying to do in creating this great, wonderful place. But in order to get those luxury homes, we need to do at least that 90% brick if they're going to do the luxury homes, is what I'm thinking. and instead of the 50/50 as well. And that's what some of the other people were mentioning too, that we should keep that continuity as what the rest of Tate Lane is pretty much looks like right across from that, needs to be about the same there. But I am also concerned about the wall. I'm not a fan of the wall. I will not support the wall. And I do think that it's important to keep that setting that the other owners in the area were trying to support as well. And that it does need a landscape buffer there between the subdivision and the backs of the homes there in order to privatize that for not only the people across the street, but also the homeowners as well. A fence is fine. The powder coated fence is great, but as long as there's the landscaping. And I don't know exactly where that sidewalk is going to go in that, but somehow, if there has to be a sidewalk, that would be all. But that's what I'm thinking right there. But I do think the access is important, and I can foresee that being important to other developments as well.
Only other, I'll piggyback that comment on two things. There is, I'm thinking about the construction of that roundabout is not really conducive where this tie-in point in Lynn Haven would be for another entrance over there.
Right.
But I was going to also piggyback the moving away from the 50/50 request here to more of a 65-35 because I did look up these plans, Hillary 2, Harmon, Henley, and the entire back is hardy board. With no real elevation to the rear of these. Their front elevations are nice. And if you look at the breakdown that they gave us, it's in line with the composition of materials that they're out there. And I think that it would play better to a 65-35. I don't know that we've granted anybody a 50/50 before, but a 65-35 gives you a little bit of leeway for architectural design, incorporation and whatnot. 90-10 really doesn't handle too much on an executive style, particularly in your gables and sides, your areas over roof kind of a deal. 65-35 gives you a little bit of a play so you can get a true differentiation into your plans, but not a 50/50. And my main concern is that they're meeting their percentages for the entirety of the property on the front, and they're not doing anything to the rear elevations of these houses. And if you look at them online, that their houses, there is no breakdown of the composition of materials on the rear of these houses. It's 100% alternative material.
Can I ask a
Please.
question? Clarify with the city attorney, when we went through the tech reviews and the pre-apps, everything, the building materials is one of the things that was still intact with the zoning previously. And at that point, there was no, this is before the 100% bigger stone became a thing in Mount Juliet. And per the requests of staff, we just added those material that, I say recommendation, but we put numbers to it, said, here's this one, this particular one we're showing has this percentages, these percent, just to show what they were. It wasn't necessarily set the minimum. So just, I don't want to sound again argumentative, but there was back to the zoning as it stands, that's already in effect, is not building material facade based. And again, I would like to let the owner speak to the style of homes, the price point, the things like that. I want to wipe out everyone's mind. This is going to be an ugly hardy board house. These are, I'll let him.
Name and address for the record.
Steve Griffith, 1614 Tate Lane. I'm directly across from this property. I've owned this property for many years, and I can tell you the history and your concern on the other entrance. So I've paid to design this twice now. When we designed it the first time, the reason that roundabout there is there, and the reason it was designed with no other entrance, I wanted an entrance. And when I came up here to get it approved, there was absolutely no chance that they were ever going to let an entrance go through there. I developed Lynn Haven and I wanted to connect them. And they completely shot it down and said, no, you even need to put lots here because we don't ever want it coming through there in the future. And because we do not want people using that as a pass-through and going down Tate Lane. And so I paid to design it, and then I paid to redesign it a second time here. And I live across the street from there. My house is 12,000 square feet. It's a very beautiful house. It's a $5-6 million house. It is 100% hardy. So you're talking about the neighborhood. The wall, I own 30 acres down the street. It has a 1 mile wall around it. So that wall matches, this wall will be much shorter, will be much better landscaped on it because it's in the city. But it is a very high-end wall, and it cost me a lot more money to put it in there. But I like the safety aspect of the wall as well. You know, if the police in here can tell you, there was a police chase that went down our road just the other day. There was an arson 2 days ago that backed up to one of my properties there. But the police chase ended at the other end of Tate Lane. I've got 10 children. If you've been on Tate Lane, the traffic there is very fast and people don't know that road. We get trucks that get stuck down that road all the time. We don't need to add more traffic there. And that wall will be very well landscaped. I talked to Mr. Hunter, who's a great man. He was in here speaking earlier. I don't know if he spoke. I was at my son's graduation honors presentation, so I'm sorry I wasn't here. But we are going to make this the nicest neighborhood in Mount Juliet. The average home price in there will be 1.5 million and above. I'm going to be on this street until they carry me out of my house. My permanent house is being built just 2 houses down from the house that I'm currently in. And I would ask you just to consider, we have waited and waited on this property, and we're trying to make this weather. We had great help with the staff here, Jennifer Hamblin. The reason we're in here just for the grading is because we're trying to beat the weather so that we can start grading it before the winter, which will put us off another year. And we're trying to keep this moving forward. And we've already got a builder who's going to build beautiful homes in here. It'll be a very good add-on to the city's tax base, because this will be like, 2 or 3 homes in value that you can add to your tax base. So I'd say, please consider the work that we put into this. If you look across the street again, it's 100% hardy, and it's a beautiful home. And we're only going to put in there very high-end homes. If you've ever been to Watercolor down in Florida, this is where the inspiration for this neighborhood has come from. And my house across the street is a very good representation of there. These will have more traditional brick and stone accents, but they will be very, very nice. I don't know if there's any other questions for anyone here. I'd be happy to answer any questions. But I've got a lot of personal investment here. I sold both of these ladies their home, and I know that they probably not. I didn't hear what they said, but I'm sure they're not happy with some part of it. But I've developed that whole area there, and I'd like to finish this and get it across the finish line. So if there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you.
And there's one other issue we're dealing with where I didn't listen to the sidewalk thing, but I met with Freddie, and there is a water line going through there, and you all did some type of easement or annexation because you were going to try to put the connector possibly through there, and that got shot down. Well, that wider easement or access is there, and Freddie's going to have an issue with the water line if it stays in there, and I think you can explain it better. I don't understand it, but there's something that's no longer being used that got added in a few years ago when they were trying to get the western connector that affects his water line, and he's adamant that that water line can't be in that special easement or something. So I'm gonna let him explain it. But it's already there.
So that was, at this point, we've had conversations with Wes Wilson, and Wes Wilson's preference is that their water lines maintain on private property in an easement, preferably over being inside the right of way of the city or the county. The previous plan that was submitted, before this round, had a right of way dedication that was 12 or 13 or 14 feet, depending on where you were on the road. That put their water line into the right of way. So at that point, they were going to require, and they would require, the length of that water line be dug up and moved out of the right of way. So we have discussed with them and the road commission to get our roadway expansion that's happening out front on Tate Lane inside a right of way that is appropriately sized for that right of way and not for, it doesn't affect the water anymore. So the water will maintain on the private property and the easement. So again, that's all worked out at this point. But Cap Seal, if there's more questions, again, please feel free.
Further questions, comments from the commission? Please.
I just wanted to be clear about what I said with the zoning. So it is absolutely accurate that they are 100% locked in with everything that is zoning. So that includes the number of units, density, lot size, which would incorporate buffers and setbacks, and their base zoning. But design standards are not one of those things. So that's the Planning Commission and then the Board of Commissioners decision.
Very well.
And also completely up to the board, but I might suggest that since there seems to be differing opinions and a lot of nuances going on, that maybe the Planning Commission vote one by one on the waivers and the variances, so we're absolutely clear about what's being decided or what's being supported and what is not. And then ultimately at the end, vote on the PMDP as a whole based on the decisions that were made on each individual variance or waiver. But that is your call, just a suggestion.
So 8 votes, or 9 total votes?
Just based on all the comments I've heard, it might make it easier, but it is your call. Yes.
Cool.
I thought you was talking about every one of those.
She was.
No, just the waivers and the variances where it says staff supports or doesn't support.
For Public Works to determine.
Correct.
Further questions, comments? No, ma'am. I'm sorry you spoke at the meeting, at the start of the meeting. You're going, only one opportunity to speak.
One correction, or just for that variance number 3, maximum lot coverage 25%, 35% required. I think it should be 35% is what we're requesting. 25% is what is required currently, I believe. And I want to again check back with.
You're requesting 25?
No, we're requesting 35.
We're requesting 35. So then that's not a variance request if they're requesting 35. Is that correct? Is that what you're trying to say? Because we have it as 5.103 maximum lot coverage requested is 25%, 35% is required. So you're only requesting 35% lot coverage. So therefore you don't
Maximum
need a
lot
waiver.
coverage. Right, we're exceeding the max by doing 35%.
The max. Oh, okay.
Sorry, yeah, that's, I was trying to, if you flop the numbers in the waiver, it'll correct it.
Okay. You want 35, 35 requested.
And as we go through, again, ask same if whenever we do them waiver one by one, whatever it is, you can, I am still blurry at best at which ones are active variances that are not up for vote and which ones are. Right, yeah, that's,
Yes, I see.
That
your
makes
point.
sense.
Yes.
Required?
25 is the maximum.
Max, they're requesting 35, so hence the variance. It's just worded improperly on our sheet.
Requested instead of required.
That's right.
It's coverage, so it's.
Okay. I know you said that, and I'm just trying to.
Yeah, it's just worded improperly on our sheet, I'd say. All right, any further questions, comments from the commission? Seeing none, let's call for citizen comments in regards to this item on our agenda. Any citizens wishing to make comment are welcome, encouraged to do so, and come to the microphone and name and address for the record. Please. Name and address for the record.
Chad Potts, 1660 Tate Lane. while the submitted is exactly the same, a lot has changed on Tate Lane. Green Hills, 12 home, Green Hill High School, 12 homes on the Zumbro property. The soccer practice field's been completed. If Tate Lane can handle the traffic, surely Due West can. I guess what we're saying is we're still in favor of Due West being the access point. Okay.
Thank you.
That's all.
Seeing no additional citizen comments. So city attorney is recommending us table for vote each and every one of the variances and then vote on the project itself.
With the caveat that 1, 2, and 3 do not need to be voted on. Those are locked in with their previous vote. So 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Even though we have no recommendation from staff. So we can't really, we're not engineers up here. One of us is, but we have no recommendation.
Yeah.
We show just Public Works to determine.
Yeah, it's under our comments, under comment 7. Yeah, 7D.
Yeah, ABCD.
So,
Roadway related is 7 ABCD.
so it's a typo on our variance waivers because staff supports. Is that correct? Is that the way I'm reading that? Supported, supported, supported on A, B, and C, and D.
Well, it's 7 is planning staff does not support it. Public Works staff does. It's kind of
Okay.
split vote here.
Okay.
Item 6.
And we're looking for you guys, right?
Number 6, planning comp
6
item.
on its own.
And
Okay.
items 4, 5, 7, and 8 are further work, enhances further detail over public works. Number 7.
I mean, my only question with doing it this way is you're going to be making recommendations right here when you don't have a recommendation on the subdivision itself and their comments are directly related to a connection or no connection to Due West. So it's hard to kind of separate and vote for them individually when you don't know what you're voting on.
Maybe I would suggest we do the vote like normal, but if it becomes an issue where it gets denied,
Or we
then
need
we go back
clarification.
and go one by one.
And
I think
really,
that'd probably be better.
this was my idea, and I think the reason I find it helpful is because I can go ahead and tell you that there's been comments made by other planning commissioners that I will not support the project if they have it a certain way. So my thought process was to just do this like standard parliamentary procedure. Make a main motion to approve the plan. And then each variance is an amendment to that motion. And then at the end of it, we can have a total thing. Because if somebody in this room says that they support the plan but require connection to Due West, I will be voting no. And then we'll go back and forth for 2-3 hours, depending on how the vote shakes out.
Yeah.
I think I was just trying to get us out of here at a decent time.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the reason why I say that, I mean, you really need the vote on the plan because 8 really has to do whether or not you have a connection. 7 is a connection. 5 has to do most likely with the connection.
Chairman, I'm sorry,
Ma'am.
I might have said it incorrectly, but Commissioner George said it correctly. You would make a motion to either approve or deny. And then while that is on the table, then you would make intermittent amendments to it. And then there
There
would
you
be
go.
the final vote.
Okay.
So
Now
you
that
kind
makes
of
sense.
leave that main motion pending while you make the amendments. And then you'll have them, then you will do that main motion at the end. So that way you know if you're approving or what the focus is.
Okay. All right. All right. Yeah.
We can start with 4 and work our way down.
Yeah.
And I think by the time we get to the end product, we've got a decision across the board.
Are you really going to start with the project itself and then move forward?
I can
All right, with that being said, we've gone through citizen comments. Let's like to ask for a motion regards this item on our agenda.
I'm going to make a motion to approve or make a positive recommendation rather, for the reserve at Tate Lane.
That's a motion for a positive recommendation?
I'll do the second, but we want to go through this.
Yeah, motion and a second.
I would like to propose that we approve variance number 4, cul-de-sac length, exceeding 700 feet length and 14 unit maximum, as supported by Public Works.
Okay.
Second that as well?
Yes.
I'll second that one.
Keep
And
going.
now you would vote on that one.
Yeah, now we can vote on that specific amendment to the approval.
We didn't vote on it going forward. I thought you had to do that first.
Well,
It's
no,
he's
because
got a
as long
motion
as the
for a
main-
positive recommendation.
Okay.
As
Yeah,
long as the main motion's on the table, you can add as many amendments
Yeah.
as you want down the road.
Correct.
It just becomes the main motion as amended with every proceeding thing that's passed.
correct. All right, I've got a motion and a second for a positive recommendation. And that motion includes approval of variance waiver number 4, which would be the cul-de-sac length exceeding 700 feet in length and 14 unit maximum. That is correct on your motion and your second.
Yes, but we're just voting on the amendment, though. We're not voting on the motion itself.
And the amendment A being just the approval of number
Approval of
4.
variance 4.
Very well.
So how does that affect the fact that if that is a cul-de-sac, it would have to be redesigned if we're still, is that correct?
This would have no impact. This would just allow them to.
Allow the plan to be heard, basically.
And this would allow them to, if they did have to redesign it, just have cul-de-sacs exceeding 700 feet and 14 units. Because either way here, they're going to have cul-de-sacs.
So really, you're only voting on the amendment. If that amendment, and that would be the approval of cul-de-sac length exceeding 700 feet and 14 unit maximum is what we're voting on, would be the amendment. So I've got a motion and a second on that amendment right there. So we're voting on the amendment only at this point in time. So all those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? Commissioner George, table's yours.
I'd like to make an amendment to approve variance number 5, that all roads be 25 miles an hour as supported by Public Works.
Second that as well.
It's a motion and a second for the approval of number 5, all roads to 25 miles an hour. That being said, got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? One is approved. Commissioner George?
I'd like to make another amendment, variance number 6, 5-104.4, single-family residential design standards, cumulative 50% masonry and 50% secondary materials for each home facade, as supported by staff.
So it's a motion.
Without a second, it would die. That was just that amendment, yeah, to approve it as staff supported it. Yeah.
I'll go ahead and second it until we table that for a vote. So I get a motion and a second on number 6, which would be 5-104.4, single-family residential design standards, cumulative 50% masonry, 50% secondary materials for each home facade. Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising their hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? That one is declined. Commissioner George, table is
All right.
yours.
Move in with positive recommendation for variance number 7, transportation plan, that there will be no connection between Due West and Tate Lane, as supported by Public Works and as not supported by planning staff.
I'll second that.
So your motion is no connection.
Yes, correct.
It's a motion and a second for the transportation plan, no connection between Due West and Tate Lane. Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Abstentions? That one is approved.
Make a amendment for positive approval on variance number 8, private roads, all roads to be private in lieu of public, as supported by Public Works, contingent on number 7 passing, as it did.
Number 7 was approved, so your motion is to make all roads private.
Correct.
Seconded as noted.
That's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Aye. Against? Abstentions? So approved.
Now, the question becomes, since we decline, this might be for the attorney, since we decline the variance for number 6, do we need to come back with a different percentage, or do we just leave that off and move past it?
It would just be that that portion was negatively recommended by
Okay.
the planning commission.
So the BOC will ultimately make that decision.
Okay, cool. Even
That'd be
better.
correct.
All right, so now it's as amended with all those conditions, and we can go back to our regular scheduled program.
Now you're just back on the main motion for approval.
So I currently have a motion. Your second, Commissioner Rast, does stand.
Yes.
Any amendments or additions to that motion outside of that?
No more.
Having the wall there.
Oh.
I don't think that the wall is conducive to the area's aesthetics in that area. And I asked that the wall be eliminated.
That could be an amendment.
Are you leaving the wall in, or?
I want to leave the wall in, so, but she could have an amendment right now. To
I
take the
make an
wall out.
amendment to eliminate the wall and continue with the landscape buffer and any kind of other fencing other than just a wall.
I think the landscape buffer is in there regardless.
Right.
So it would be, really, the motion would be towards leaving the wall or diverting back to the powder coated metal fence.
Then the powder coated.
If we eliminate the wall, this is a gated area. What's going there to
The
keep
fence.
anybody from going in there?
Fence.
Be the
It'd be a fence.
The
powder coated metal
powder
fence.
coated fence.
Huh?
The powder coated metal fence.
Okay. Metal fence.
Black
Okay.
usually.
So your motion would be an amendment to eliminate the wall and in its place be a powder coated metal fence.
Yes. I'll second.
It's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Against?
No.
Abstentions? That would be did I get 4?
Yeah, before no's.
4 no's. So that would be disapproved. So the
No,
wall
4
stays. in.
yeses.
Okay,
It wasn't a majority vote, so it fails.
Yep, that is correct.
And what
So the
was
wall
that?
stays.
Yeah, I didn't catch everybody's vote. My apologies.
I thought it.
So that motion, that amendment did fail. So the wall stays in.
I thought we had 4 to 4.
4.
Oh.
Yep. So I got a motion and a second for a positive recommendation.
Tried.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to do it.
I've got a motion and a second for a positive recommendation. All those in
Alternate
favor
fail.
signify by saying aye
That's
and
true.
raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Abstentions? That would be a positive recommendation. All right.
That was some work.
I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Let's adjourn.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Against? Abstentions? We are adjourned.
Already in the